Buonasera team, and welcome back to the channel. Very short video this time around. We're coming from the end of autumn into winter, and I thought I'd spend a little bit of time just talking about lines and monofilament lines specifically. We're not going to be touching on braid or anything like that. I don't use braid. It's not the style of fishing that I require it, so I don't know that much about it. I'm not going to talk about what I don't know. But monofilament lines, as we head from autumn into winter, it's currently -3 outside this evening. It's going to drop down to probably -5 tonight. We've had snow and the weather is up and down like a fiddler's elbow. So it's time now to start thinking about adapting rigs, adapting lines, and adapting into the new season. But I realised throughout the videos I do, when we're on the bank, we're fishing a match or whatever, I always talk about my lines as, back in the day I used to say it's 0.12, 0.12, 0.14, 0.16, and then I'd caveat that by saying in old money that's £3.5 or whatever. I've stopped doing that for whatever reason. I'm almost assuming that those viewers understand what I mean when I talk diameters. So I want to just touch upon the meaning behind when I talk through the lines that I use. Now, over the time, probably past 10-15 years, what we call high-tech pre-stretched line has become the norm in pole fishing. Way back when, and not to be, when I were a lad, but there was only a couple of brands really. That was Bayer Perlon, German brand, very low pound strength, and we always spoke about pound strength. So you'd have perhaps a 2.5 pound main line, you'd have 1.7, 1.8 bottom hook length. Now we're talking these digits that I was mentioning. And the other one was Maxima. I've got a little spool that I managed to find just here, 3 pound Maxima. Still have that on a couple of reels, just for old time's sake more than anything. But it's robust, and it does what it says on the tin. It's strong and supple. But high-tech stretch lines, I would advise that you only use for pole fishing, so for pole rigs. On your reel line, I always tend to stick to 1 or 2 brands. And over time, I've started realising that actually the brand is immaterial. I'm sure the vast majority of the stuff's made in the same factory or whatever. But I do stick to just 1 or 2. I either use Guru Pulse, but more than likely it's going to be this, Daiwa Sensor. Daiwa Sensor, it's cheap as chips. £6 line is my go-to for summer, and actually I'm not too bothered if I use it in the winter, but you get 2,320 metres of £6 line on that spool for about £11, and that will do multiple reels. Now on here there's also a diameter as well, so yeah, it says £6, but it is 0.24 millimeters thick, so 0.24 millimeters. Now when you look on the side of a spool, it will highlight the capacity, how much line that spool will take on your reel, and it will normally be in the diameter. So if it says 0.24 and it's 150, so it's 150 meters of 0.24. It doesn't talk pound strength, so it talks about diameters on reel spools as well. So usually £6 line is my go-to all-around reel. If I was going for specifically bigger fish, double figure carp, then I do have a couple of spools with £8 on. In winter though, more likely, so I'm not too bothered if I pick up a reel and it's got £6 on, but more than likely now, very cold, just looking for odd bites, I'll step down to £4. So £4 line is 0.20 millimeters. 0.20 millimeters, and that comes in at £4. Now the reason why it's as thick as it is because it's not been pre-stretched, or high-tech lines as they're described. Not as high-tech anymore because it's been around for years, but back in the day they were called high-tech lines. Well, that's not pre-stretched, so that's why it's better for fishing on a rod and line. You've got more chance of breaking off if you was to use a pre-stretched line on a rod and reel setup. So that's my go-to lines because it's cheap. I mean, for £4 you get 3,090 meters for probably, I don't know what that costs, between £10 and £15, depending on where you shop. So Daiwa Sensor, it's good value and it's robust, and I've used that for several years. But when it comes to pole lines, pole rig lines, these are these pre-stretched. So if we was to take, for example, this one here, this is what I use for my big fish rigs down the edge margin in the summer. I use this one here, it's Matrix Micron, and this 0.20, which is the same as the 4-pound Daiwa sensor, same thickness, same diameter, 0.20 comes in at 7.5 pound breaking strain. So that's nearly double the real line because it's been pre-stretched, which is why it's thinner. But there are some manufacturers, especially the Italian ones, I think talking to one of the lads in the club the other week, Jelly Beam, and he uses a Colmic line, and something like 0.20 comes in at nearly 15 pound, so nearly double this, you know, so nearly 4 times the strength of the Daiwa sensor because of the way that it's made. So it depends what brand that you use, depends on the strength, but normally now, if you watch any of my videos, you'll see if I say my rig is made of 0.20 mainline and 0.16 hook length, then you know what I'm talking about. It's the diameter and not necessarily the strength. Now, if I just flip the camera over, you'll see I've put a bunch of different brands here, and they come in sort of odds or evens. So 0.20, 0.19 Guru, 0.17, 0.16, 13, what's that, 12, 11, 0.10. So depending on the brand, depends whether they use odds or evens. And the strengths, you'll see, are relatively relatively similar. So 0.19, 7 pound, 0.17 is 6 pound here, 0.16, just slightly thinner, is just over 5 pounds. So it depends on the brand. Some of them will be slightly different. So MIDI here, as an example, says that it's specially developed fluoro crystal. What that means, I'm not too sure, but it's saying that it's a different material compared to perhaps some of the other brands. I don't know. If you can get your hands on this, it'll either be called WB Clark or Silstar Match Team. Fantastic line. It's just really difficult to get hold of now, and I use this for years and years. But I've moved more to the more modern brands now, like Guru and Matrix. But if you can get your hands on Silstar, they come in 100-meter spools, probably for £5 or £6. You'll get many rigs out of them, and many hook lengths if you use this line for hook lengths. But moving away from these what I would use as mainline for this time of the year, the secret for many anglers in the know will be now swapping over the hook lengths to something called fluorocarbon. Now fluorocarbon 0.12 here comes in at £2, but if we compare that to the Silstar, 0.12 comes in at just over £3. So again, that's 2/3 stronger than this, even though it's the same thickness or the same diameter. The reason why is fluorocarbon is slightly different to all these other brands. It's claimed that it's virtually invisible in the water. It's a lot stiffer as well compared to standard mono. So that means when you've got that as a hook length, as soon as that bait is picked up, because it's stiffer than typical mono line, you'll see the bite quicker. It's not as stretchy as these other two as well, so it's a little bit stiffer, so you'll see the bite quicker, and it's virtually invisible in the water. So the two brands I use when it comes to fluorocarbon, this will be from probably now through to February time, March time. Fluorocarbon hook lengths, I use the Guru Pure, which is 0.10, comes in at £1.50, or 0.12, the £2 Drennan Suplex fluorocarbon, and this will be for sort of small silvers up to, you know, medium size F1s and small carp. To be honest, if you're using balanced tackle, so light elastics with a fluorocarbon hook length, these are going to be typically with a size 18 hook, maybe a 20 on a very difficult day. So I'm going to be using something like a 4 to 6 or a 6 to 8 a hybrid or hollow elastic. If you do hook a big carp, they're a lot slower, a lot more sluggish in this temperature and these weather. So you've got a good chance as long as you take your time to get them in. So that really is a bit of a whistle-stop overview of the lines that I use on my pole rigs. If I say to you, so the rig on this top kit is 0.15 main line, it's probably going to be Guru N-gauge because they're the odd numbers. Down to a 0.11 hook length, again it's probably going to be Guru N-gauge. If I say it's 0.20 or 0.18, it's probably going to be the Matrix Power Micron down to a 0.12 hook length. Again, Power Micron, or perhaps there might even be a Silverstar hook length. I normally try and say it on the video what the brand is, but over years I've realized it's pretty irrelevant. Find the brand that you like, stick with it as long as it doesn't let you down. There's a couple of anomalies as well. Over the years, Preston Innovations has had a lot of bad press about its power line that they use, Preston Power Line. You know, the diameter stated on the spool is not what it actually is when people use a micrometer to see how thick it really is. In fact, it can be a couple of points of a millimeter out. So some people are unhappy with that. It's not what it stated, but I think they've changed over years. I don't know. I've never used Preston line. If you want to get so in depth at using micrometers for different lines, I'm not really interested in any of that. I say this time of the year, something like a 0.15, 16 millimeter main line, which would come in at around probably £4 to £5 depending on the brand, with a 0.12 or a 0.10 fluorocarbon hook length with a size 18 or 20 hook. That will give you a good start, stand you in good stead for many different species, from small silvers up to sort of medium size F1s and small carp. So that's it, a bit of a quick whistle stop overview of some monofilament main lines. Hopefully that was useful. Cheers for watching. Catch you on the bank soon, hopefully in the cold.